Guys, I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I also am a family nurse practitioner. So I worked in internal medicine, so like the medical part. And then also when I started working in internal medicine, I realized how much there was a need for psychiatry, like for help with that. If I felt like someone needed to go get help for depression or anxiety, there was like a 6-month wait list, and I really felt like that was not right. So I really found an interest in the human brain and mental health. So that's how I became a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I also am a woman in recovery from an eating disorder. So my times in high school were definitely they were not the healthiest, they were not the happiest for sure. So I started struggling with the eating disorder probably when I was 14. And I'll tell you about that a little bit. So I mainly wanted to talk about how to create body confidence and improve self-esteem. Like, it sounds so easy, right? I know that when I was younger, I actually don't remember ever feeling like I liked myself. I had that inner critic, that voice in my head all the time. And then I would have friends that, like, they were completely loved their body, loved themselves, like, didn't care what people said. And so, I always wondered, like, why do I have such a hard time with loving myself, accepting myself? And now that I treat, eating disorders, depression, anxiety with adolescents that are struggling, I start to see where these patterns come from. And you guys have it even harder because we didn't have cell phones back then. We didn't have social media. I don't even know. I just think I was really obsessed with Teen Magazine and 17. And that was really all the environmental stuff we really had. But still the competition and the low self-esteem was within that era. That's just me. So what is body image? Sounds like it would be easy to define, but really, when I say body image, this isn't about like what someone else thinks of you. This is about your internal, what you think about your body, how you think and you feel about your body. So thinking about it, like my thoughts in my head would be like, you're so gross, you're so fat. And my feelings were just feelings of like disgust and guilt and shame. Whereas one of my friends who was on the swim team and who didn't have the same, negative thoughts and feelings, she was like, I'm strong, and she was so confident and she was happy. She didn't have a care in the world about her body. So it's basically how you see your body, thoughts and feelings about it. And also, when I was younger, I never was overweight. So there's something called body dysmorphia. So dysmorphia meaning, I want to say it's not true. It's almost like, so it was my perception of what I thought my body looked like versus what it really was. So for example, I would go back and look at pictures of myself, in 14, 15, and I'll look back at them now and I'll be like, oh my God, I was so pretty, I was so cute, I wasn't fat. But I remember looking at those pictures at that age and just being so disgusted. Like, it was almost as if my eyes I needed a new pair of glasses because I really couldn't see the truth right. And that's very common with teenagers, especially teenage girls. But even my son, he plays baseball, and I feel like with the guys, it's always like, I want to get stronger, I want to be taller, I want to be, bigger and all of this. And sometimes I'm like, dude, do you know how tall you are? Like you're really big enough, you're good. And my son is just like, no, I don't feel like I'm 5'11". How do I get taller? I feel like it doesn't just affect girls, it affects everybody, especially when you're going through puberty. It's like, what is going on? I feel so out of control of my body. And that's like one thing we can control, right? Like, we don't have a lot of control when we're in high school, or I know I didn't. So obviously it can be positive, neutral, or negative, and it can change. So that's one thing that I've learned, is that it can be fluid. So it's not always like, you're not destined if right now I'm really feeling bloated or I hate my body right now, it doesn't mean that's how it's going to be for the rest of my life. It changes, just how our feelings change, our body image will change. So this is something that I started to realize as I became a nurse practitioner and really was working with people with eating disorders, is the early development of body image. So I don't know about you, but I grew up in a household where, my mom is still the way my mom is, which is fine. That's who she is. But she grew up in a family just like I grew up. Her mom was very concerned with the way she looked. She was very critical. Everything was about how you look to the outer world. We didn't talk about feelings. And it really was, you didn't develop like a relationship with your body. And I know that sounds kind of weird, like what do you mean a relationship? But in the early development of body image, by the age of 6, did you know that each kid, so that's like preschool, kindergarten, children at the age of 6 will start to develop their own concept of what they think about their body. So they will start to develop their own opinions. Once they have these constructs or this opinion of what they think their body is to them, they start to compare. So they've figured out, okay, I am this tall and Sally is that tall and I want to be that way. Like, how do I be that way? Like, why am I this way? And I remember it was kindergarten. You guys probably, well, you weren't born then, obviously. But back then, the cowgirl boots were so in. I know it sounds crazy. And so I remember my mom got me these cowgirl boots, and they just were not as cool. I felt like I didn't want them because I felt like they made my ankles look fat. And I was in kindergarten. And so I was like, I don't want these. I would refuse to wear them, and I'd wear my little Keds instead, which really made no sense, but I just felt that way. That was my body image. I hated the way these boots made me feel, so I took them off. And I was jealous, and I compared myself to all the other little girls who had the cute boots and the small ankles. Now again, if you looked at my ankles compared to another 6-year-old's ankles, you would not see any difference, but it was my perception. It was the way I was perceiving my body image, and that's by the age of 6. So now research shows like the importance of parents, especially the moms, but the importance of parents kind of almost welcoming your body here. Like in terms of, let's say you're 3 years old and you're starting to realize, oh my God, I have 5 fingers, I have all this stuff going on. This is my body. It's talking about, like, we talk to our kids about, what does your body do? So, oh my God, you've got these great legs and you can run this fast. And how does your body work versus what does it look like? And that's something that obviously I don't think anyone back then knew. And I'm just learning this, the importance of literally learning to help your child develop a relationship with their body right away as a toddler. Because once you get to kindergarten and everything like that, it's just the automatic evolution of environment that they know what they look like. They know that's what they know. That's their perception. And now, obviously, everyone is different. So then it's the mind, as a 6-year-old, it's all about me, right? So it's like, well, wait a minute, she doesn't look like me, and I want to look like her because I feel like crap about myself, and so if I look like her, I'll feel better. And so I know that I noticed my son probably when he was 8, but he would start saying, I gotta get taller, I gotta get faster, he started to really, the competition, the comparing started. Obviously, as young as 3, they can have body image issues, and you, as a parent, you may not even notice. You may think, oh, she's just like competitive with so-and-so, and it's the inner critic of them coming out. Toddlers can start to recognize themselves in mirrors and pictures. They can start to see, oh, my arm is getting bigger, or I'm getting taller, or all these ways that they can perceive themselves. Preschoolers may start to say they want to change things about their body. I wanted smaller ankles. I remember, I think it was first grade, but I remember there was like this, we did like a first grade circus where we all like dressed up as animals or something. And I wanted to be Crystal Squires, who was she was tiny petite, and she was the gymnast that like sat on the elephant. And I remember I was so jealous to this day. I actually know her full name, because I was the giraffe, because I was taller, and whatever the reason was, I just remember looking at pictures during that time, feeling so crappy about myself, and so much wanting to be the light, really tiny, blonde gymnast. Yeah, but I couldn't, because that's not me. But I wasn't okay with myself until I felt like I got to that point. Like I said, it's important to focus on what a child's body can do. So playing, exploring, eating. What do my arms do? What do my legs do? How fast am I running? All of that, instead of like, oh wow, just noticing your daughter like is taller than so-and-so. We don't think that those things would bother, but that's like where it starts the comparing. So factors affecting your body image. So obviously your family upbringing. And I don't know any perfect mom or dad here in this whole country. I don't think there are any. I know for myself, when I became a mom, after everything I experienced, I really realized how much I developed this compassion for my parents, because I thought, when I was struggling with my eating disorder in high school and things, I thought, God, my mom, she's doing this on purpose. She's purposely like focusing on, the external, and she's not listening to me. She didn't get that either. She didn't know any different. I was in therapy by the age of 14, so I was learning and developing the tools. My mom never had that. It was almost as if I was learning to speak English, and it was just like, we grew up with Spanish, and I was learning English, and she just was like, I'm trying to, I don't know, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm trying. But it was, I was brought up into a family where I didn't even know what feelings were. It was all about what you looked like. I remember, I think I was in middle school or high school, but I remember my mom was like, I am not going to Meijer with you if you're wearing those sweatpants. And I was like, all right. And that was like when I was just starting to really develop this eating disorder, and I didn't have makeup on. She's like, you need to put makeup on. And now that I treat adolescents with eating disorders, and I talk to their parents, and I look back and I'm like, oh God, it's so hard. It's so hard on either end, because our parents love us unconditionally. And I'm sure there's no parent that intentionally is saying things or doing things to cause harm, but that's just the way that they were raised. So on one end, yes, let's give them some slack, but on the other end, if you're struggling with the way you look, how you feel, the way you're eating, whatever, like, you have a right to go to your guidance counselor. You can seek out a therapist on your own, and you can have your own first 6 sessions without telling your parents. Like, there are ways that you can seek help, even just to talk about it. You can email me, because I feel like now in this generation, it's so much harder than it was. I know that I have girls that will go to Linden Oaks, or boys who have eating disorders, they'll go to Linden Oaks, or they'll go to treatment, and then they'll come back, and I'll have to write a note for them to be able to eat their lunch with the nurse, because the eating in the lunchroom is so dysfunctional with the females or males, whether it's they're just drinking Diet Coke, or they're not eating, or I remember back then we would all like compete to who could eat the least amount, and whoever ate more, it was like a shameful thing. We would compare sizes of our clothes. I mean, it was really sad. And I don't know, I'm not a teenager in this generation, but I do know that the girls that I treat do talk about that. And so I'm bringing them back in from treatment to an environment, and I can't control what happens on at their home, but the environment at school and the environment at home, it really will affect how you perceive yourself. Your personality. So typically, I would say that people that struggle with eating disorders are very much type A. They are very perfectionistic. They can be their worst critic. I know that for myself, I had straight A's, I was in AP classes, but it was just never enough. I was never thin enough, I was never good enough, I was never fast enough. I constantly felt like I was letting my parents down, letting myself down. I don't know really what I was expecting because I think I did the best I could. But one of the biggest things I had control over was what I was eating, what I was not eating. And hence, that's where my eating disorder started. Puberty and development, such a hard time. I know my eating disorder started in between 13 and 14. And by the way, during puberty, women or girls are typically going to gain up to 20, 25 pounds within puberty. No one ever told me that, okay? No one ever told my mom that that's normal. That doesn't mean that's gonna happen to you, and that doesn't mean it's gonna stay that way, but if it happens, okay, this is not abnormal. The body is doing this for a reason, and I didn't know that. I didn't even know you were supposed to gain weight. I didn't know, and I did. I gained probably 20 pounds in a year, and at that point, I just was like, I was like, I'm gonna control this. This is ridiculous. I don't wanna have boobs. I don't wanna feel this way. And I would start restricting. And those were things that I would use to control. But it's definitely a time, puberty, and that's a time where you feel out of control. We don't know what's going on. When are we gonna stop growing? Social media and culture, that probably explains itself. I know it's even 12 times as hard as it is than what we had. I hear about it from my patients all the time. And then friends and bullying. Doesn't even have to be bullying. I actually have one patient that she's a junior, and now that she's getting treatment for her eating disorder, her friends don't want to talk to her because they're struggling with their own stuff, which is eating disorder behaviors. And so it's expected that it gets harder before it gets better, which is hard because you would think, okay, I'm getting rid of this destructive habit, I'm doing great, and then all of a sudden, oh, my friends aren't talking to me. Like, okay, sometimes it gets harder. But that's where the therapy and the support comes in. You have to just keep coming back to that I don't want to go back to that toxic environment. They may not be developing their eating disorders now, but it's like learning that behavior, that diet culture is not normal. I have never talked so much. So my personal journey to body positivity and self-esteem. So like I said, I just can remember looking at pictures, by the age of 5 or 6, where I could name 5 different things at that age of what I hated about myself. I don't think there was ever something where I was like, oh my God, I love my smile, I love this, I love that. So that's just the way that I was molded. That's all I knew. And as I grew up, what I looked like and what my body looked like and what people thought of me was really, really important. Because I didn't like myself enough. I didn't accept myself at all. So I needed that validation from the teachers. I needed it from my friends that I was thin enough. I needed it from the coaches. I needed it like air to breathe. That's how important it was because I wasn't able to give it to myself and I didn't get it from my parents. But I did get validation for what I looked like and my grades. So those were 2 things that I could easily control. In which the teachers never, I was valedictorian, so you would never think that, she's struggling, No, so it was missed, it was glossed over, which was great for me because I didn't want anyone I wanted help, but at the same time, I didn't want help, So I struggled with anorexia and bulimia, from 14 to about 30. So it was about 16 years of my life. Would I change it? Do I regret it? It wasn't the best thing, but it really taught me a lot, and I'm able to stand here. I'm 42 now, so, and be in recovery for 12 years, not perfect recovery at all. I always say I'm an imperfect parent, daughter, person, practitioner. I'm always imperfect, and I'm fine with that. And I'm actually really happy I am because when I'm imperfect, I'm able to connect with people like you. I'm not above you. I'm not above anybody. I went through a lot. I went through Linden Oaks like 3 times. I went to many different treatment centers out of state. There was just a lot. There was a lot. I had to leave college to take a leave because I needed to go to treatment. But eventually, I hit my own bottom where I wanted it for me. Like, I didn't want to, what do I want to say? I wasn't doing it for my parents. I wasn't doing it to get through college. I wasn't doing it for anything else other than I really wanted to survive. I started to really believe, like, I want to live. And I don't want to live with an eating disorder. I mean, you can live with an eating disorder, but it's a slow, painful death. I had no friends. My son doesn't really know specifically about my eating disorder, but he knows that I was a loser in high school. So I guess I was, in terms of my only friend was my eating disorder. Like I really had no friends. I was on the tennis team, but I had to go to treatment so much that I wasn't really connecting with anyone. And then in college, it was very similar. I would use alcohol or my eating disorder just to numb out. I was still able to get through school, like my grades, so I was able to show up for that, but I really wasn't showing up. I was like this empty shell, this zombie. And then throughout starting out as a young adult, I started to realize that my eating disorder and my behaviors and my thoughts were really, really like having a big effect on my work life. Like I started to not be able to show up for work. Just like someone who's drinking a lot or using drugs, like I was just not able to be present. I could not do my job. Whereas before in high school, college, I was able to get by, but I wasn't able to get by anymore. And that's when I really started taking treatment seriously. And then I became pregnant, and I feel like that's the point where I was like, enough is enough. Like this is not all about me anymore. Like I had this spark in me that just went off. And thankfully my son today is very healthy. I feel like he has a very great, self-esteem, probably a little too much, but I'm glad he's able to tell me, hey mom, no, that's not okay. I'm setting a boundary. And I'm like, what? I didn't even know what a boundary was until I was in my 20s probably. And it took me a long time to figure out what a healthy boundary was. I didn't know what feelings were until I was in my late 20s. Like I didn't realize, because I never felt them. I was always numbing them. And eventually I started to realize that, my son, he was like my teacher, like he somehow, all the things that I didn't get, like he just got them, they just came. And how to improve body image. So the first thing that I always tell my patients is cleaning up your newsfeed. So in terms of social media, like when I went through mine recently, I'm like, how the heck did I get attached to this Instagram feed, whatever? And so I literally went through and I'm just like, delete. And I literally deleted probably 90% of the stuff, and I just wanted to start fresh. I'm like, let me just start fresh with this, because there's just so much junk in here. When you're trying to organize your room, you can move everything into different places, but you got to get rid of some stuff. You got to get rid of some stuff first, and then you can organize. And that's what I would do. So if there's anything that you feel is, what I usually say in my head is this for my greatest good? Is this going to help me get to where I want to go, which is love and acceptance, great relationships, family? Is this, I don't know, woman talking about some makeup or basically insinuating that you have to have this makeup or this body? Is this helping me get to where I want to go? Then if it's not, goodbye. So now most of the stuff on my Instagram is mental health, positive mental health, ways to improve yourself, affirmations, I love Reiki, sound healing, everything that can help build you up. Nothing to do with what you look like. Nix negative conversations, clean up your environment, relationships, set healthy boundaries. Sounds simple, right? But if there is a negative conversation now, maybe I'm strong enough or just old enough or I just don't care, but I'll just be like, this is a great conversation, I'll just excuse myself. If someone's gossiping, I'll just excuse myself. Like, I just don't want to be a part of that. That energy does not lift me to where I want to be. And I certainly don't want to be talking about someone else. You know, I wouldn't want someone doing that to me. So in cleaning up your environment and relationships, when I got into recovery, I had to set some serious boundaries with my parents. A lot of my friends, I realized that like who I had, they always say you are the equivalent of the top 5 people you associate yourself with. So I was like, okay, mom, dad, and then 3 friends that were not healthy. I was like, okay. So now I have like 3 real good friends, a couple colleagues, parents, there's some boundaries set there, and I'm good with that. I do see that when I go back and talk to my mom, my body gets literally, I'm like, oh my God, I need a bubble. Like, I need someone to help me with this. Like, I physically feel unsafe sometimes. And when you feel that way, it's like, okay, I gotta take a step back. I've gotta like, center myself and set appropriate boundaries, and I don't have to stay here longer than XYZ. Follow people that inspire you. That's what I do. Like, I probably have literally all day I'll look through, I'm like, oh my God, I love that affirmation. Add. I'm just like, I'm constantly looking for ways to build myself up and to build my friends up and and I don't know, that's what my brain needs because my default is always to the negative. So I constantly need that. And paying attention to your inner dialogue. I know Emily did her presentation on the inner critic, and I didn't know how loud my voice was. And I knew I had a voice, but then like my therapist was like, what are you telling yourself? And I would always think, I don't know. And it's just an automatic tape from when I was 2 or 3. Just, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And my actions would associate with that. So I literally, and I hated it because it took a lot of work, and I constantly still do it. I literally write affirmations every day. I literally am constantly, I make audio tapes of I say things like, my energy is energetic and empowering. You would look at me like, you're crazy, lady. But I need that because if I just go walk down the halls and just let my brain go, my thoughts would take me away to somewhere to do things that I don't want to do. And I don't want that to seem weird, or it's just the way it is. Our brain is really fascinating. And so what you think about eventually leads to how you feel, and how you feel leads to what you do. How to improve body image again. So showing your body some love. So saying nice things about yourself for every negative. So that was really hard for me because my therapist would always be, I'd say something would slip out like, I'm so fat. And I was like, oh shoot. And then she'd say, what 3 things do you like about yourself? And that was just really, really hard for me to do and it would be like, I like my arms, I like I'm tan, and I like that I'm a size 6.5 in my shoes. I really had to really think. And now if you ask, it has nothing to do with my body. It's like, I know I'm a good teacher. I know that I'm a good mom. I'm trying to think. I know I'm a good nurse practitioner. I know I'm a great daughter. What am I, who am I? Not necessarily what I do either. Long ago it would be like, I've got straight A's, I have a boyfriend, not now. Challenge comparison with others and social media. There's this one saying that to compare is to despair. I know it sounds corny, but if I'm ever gonna compare myself to someone, I'm never gonna win. I'm always gonna lose. But there's no one like Kirsten. And I'm not special, I'm just saying, there's no one like me, and there's no one like you. You guys are all unique in your own way. So to compare, I'm always gonna feel. So what I do when I start to compare, I start to tell myself what I'm grateful for. So I don't know, let's say Emily is driving a Mercedes, and I have this Ford Explorer, and I'm comparing myself, her business is doing better, I'm just not good enough. I go back to myself. No, I have this beautiful house. I have a healthy son. I have a car. I'm so grateful to have a car. And once I start to turn that to it's weird. Once I start to say just a couple things I'm grateful for, my whole like outlook shifts. And that's like this is where the paying attention to how you talk to yourself. And writing down 10 qualities you love about yourself. My whole default is my brain as a young child is wired to tell me what I do wrong, what's going wrong, comparing. So in the morning, a lot of times I will write down just 5 things that I like about myself, 5 things that I did well, 5 things that happened great yesterday. I think they said somewhere like 90% of life is your attitude. And I know, like my father just passed away, and I know my mom is really struggling and she hard time getting out of bed and everything. And I'm just like, well, I have to get out of bed. I have to work. I have to take care of my son. And I just wake up and I'm like, okay, I know he's doing okay. Like he's in heaven. I'm grateful his life was like this. I'm so grateful I got to, he lived till this. I focus on that. And some people think that that's crazy, but it's your outlook. It's your attitude, Signs of poor body image, and this is just some of them. You can have poor body image and eat normally, exercise normally. You could just not like my son, he hated that he wasn't tall enough. It didn't necessarily go to the lengths of, trying to, in Teen Magazine, I would look through like all these, how do I get taller? How do I, all these scams, He doesn't do that. He just wanted to get taller. But using substances, I use diet pills. I use tons of caffeine. I would restrict, and then I would eat large amounts of food and I'd purge. And I definitely withdrew from social situations where people were eating. So hence, again, I really didn't have a life. It really was very sad. Constantly weighing myself. I was obsessed with weighing myself. Self-deprecation about their attractiveness. I didn't realize how much my mind was like, you look so stupid in that. Like, that was just the way I was wired. And then when I started seeing this therapist, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize my brain was constantly on the negative. So if you're constantly in the negative in your brain, do you think that like you're going to be attracting healthy relationships, or you're going to be taking good action? No. And I always would comment on my body, and I had a default to criticize other people's bodies, which as I see now today is completely inappropriate and disrespectful. My mom would do that. She would, I think maybe that's where I got it from, but she would constantly, point out the people who, didn't dress well or were overweight. And somehow she would think that they were so unhappy and they didn't have their life together just because they dressed differently or they weighed differently, So in supporting a friend, honestly, the first thing is really about listening, and that's what I have learned working with my adolescents. It's just giving them the space to sit down and not judging them, not interrupting them. Helping them reframe or challenge their negative thoughts, practicing self-care together, and asking if they can help you. Hey, how can I help you? Do you want me to help you get an appointment? Do you want me to talk to your mom? How do you want to do this? Not necessarily just, okay, I know you're struggling, and then the next day you go tell her mom without telling her. That's not supportive. Be open and honest, set a positive example. So these are just resources. I feel like the first place to start really is your counselor at school. I know that they're kind of both like guidance counselors and they're counselors, but I know that my son had an issue at home and he went straight there, and then all of a sudden it just trickled down. Like, got an outside therapist, he does these behavior skills. Like, that's kind of like the hub that I know I went to when I was at NEQA. And then I was able to get all the outside support. But I went to my health teacher. That was someone that when we talked about eating disorders in school, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna talk to you. All of those websites are super helpful. My suggestion is, instead of researching on there, because it's like kind of researching on Google, you don't know what you're gonna get, my first go-to would be my school counselor if I felt comfortable with them. If I didn't, any teacher that you feel comfortable with, health teacher, whatever teacher, pediatrician. If you feel comfortable with your Aunt Susie, go for it. I didn't have anyone in my family I wanted to talk to. But do that before any of the online stuff. But there are some really great workbooks that I always like to see my adolescents do, because this is a lifelong, body image is a lifelong, it changes, it ebbs and flows. Like, you're not always gonna love your body, you're not always gonna hate your body.